Welcome back to the Mountain Man Medical YouTube channel. Thanks for hanging out. Today we're going to take a look at ChitoGauze and talk a little bit about how to pack a wound. ChitoGauze is some of the top hemostatic agents out there on the market today. One of my favorites, and we're going to talk a little bit about why it's so nice and a little bit about how to pack a wound. So hang out, we're going to talk about that next. All right, guys, before we get into this video, go ahead and hit a like and subscribe if you haven't already done that. Most of the people that watch my videos are not subscribers, so that would really help me out. It's a completely free way to support the channel, help me to keep these videos coming out to you. And make sure that you tell somebody you love, maybe they can get something out of this as well. So share the word, spread it around, and let's see if we can help everybody out with some of this information. So ChitoGauze is one of my favorite hemostatic agents. It's right up there in the same category as Quick Clot Combat Gauze. And it helps to protect you against, I think it's 26 separate bacterium, or however you say it. So it works really, really well to help prevent infection from getting into the wound, which is a pretty standard thing that you have to worry about. Anytime that you've got an open wound, that has a risk of getting infection. So having a little extra prophylactic to prevent that from becoming a life-threatening infection, that's a pretty good deal in my opinion. So let's talk a little bit about ChitoGauze and what it is. It is a hemostatic agent, which is just a fancy word for it makes the blood clot quicker, right? We want the blood to clot quickly because what that's going to do is basically just plug up the end of that bleeding artery and get that bleeding control. So you have the added benefit of packing that gauze down into the wound so that it puts pressure on the arteries, but then we also have the added benefit of making the blood clot. So it's kind of a twofold process, and it's a great item to have. Here's some things that you need to think about before you start to pack a wound is, one, does that wound need a tourniquet? If the wound is bleeding very, very badly on the extremities and you can apply a tourniquet, you need to do that first. Wound packing is very good, but it's not as good as a tourniquet. And sometimes you can't get around having to pack a wound. You need to pack junctional wounds. You can't get a tourniquet up there, right? You're not gonna put a tourniquet around someone's neck unless you don't really like them. And if you have a wound that's too high up on the arm or in the leg, like up into the groin or into the armpit, then you're not gonna be able to place a tourniquet. So you have to be able to control that bleeding. And the best way to do that is with wound packing. Direct pressure is okay, but that's not the end all. There's so much space in the chest that you might bleed into the chest cavity and someone can just bleed out that way, or into the abdominal cavity. And so that's another reason why you need to be careful when you use hemostatic agents, is that you cannot pack chest wounds or abdominal wounds. The reason for that is that there's so much space inside of your stomach and in your chest. You can cram pack after pack of gauze into that space and not actually get any pressure on the bleeding artery, which is what we want. On top of that, you risk hampering the function of the lungs and the heart if you pack it into the chest. And you also risk introducing more infection problems into the stomach as well, and damaging the internal organs there. So it's never advised to pack abdominal or chest wounds for those reasons. Also, make sure that you're not using this for just your basic injuries. Don't be using it for anything besides trauma-related stuff. This stuff is kind of expensive, and you don't want to be using it on little boo-boos and that kind of stuff. Generally, if you have a small wound that is bleeding pretty good, but you're not going to die from it, the best thing that you can do is just direct pressure. Hold direct pressure on that wound, get that bleeding to stop. That's the best thing that you can do. So don't be just running around and using this for anything that is not like massive trauma. You're worried that this person is going to die. It's kind of expensive, and there's better ways of doing things. All right, enough talking. Let's look at how we're going to pack this wound. All right, here we got sim lim. This is what we're going to use to demonstrate our ChitoGauze. You can also use this for any kind of wound packing, and you also have a little base here so you can practice putting on your tourniquets. On the side here, it's got little slices so you can practice suturing if you so desire. I've been playing around a little bit, so got some stitches in there. This is a pretty good little product. You have some fake blood. The kit comes with fake blood in it, but I already had some sitting around because, this is my job. So I have the fake blood already set up and in there. The fake blood that comes with it is just a powder. You reconstitute it with water. It's It looks a little bit like blood, but the fake stuff you get for Halloween definitely looks more real and acts more like real blood. We got this end here, goes into the tube. Get that inserted. And then you could have the instructor or whoever just steadily pumping blood into here. And you can kind of see down in there, a little dark, but you can see the tube comes in and then it's right down here. And that's what you want to be looking for when you're packing a wound. You want to be looking for the artery that's going to be bleeding. You want that hemostatic gauze to go right on top of that artery. You want to put all of that pressure from the gauze on top of that artery. That's where you're going to get a majority of your bleeding control. Then additionally, the hemostatic agent in here will cause the blood to clot more quickly, and that will add an additional layer of protection for the bleeding control. So let's go ahead and start squeezing on this bottle. Kind of cool. There we go. We see it filling up. Filling up with blood. I'm gonna open up my packaging, tear that open, pull out the Z-folded gauze. And you can do one of two things. You can curl this into a little ball with just your fingers, or you can put a little tie in it, a knot, so that that knot will go right on top of the bleeding artery. Pull that down nice and tight. And then we're just gonna start cramming it in there. You wanna poke it down into the hole and get it right on top of that artery. There, I poked it down as far as I can get, and I'm just going to continue to feed and pack. Now you see how I'm holding on to the gauze here and feeding it as I go. One of the other things that you can do is drop this Z-fold into a front pocket, maybe your shirt, or if you have, I love fanny packs. I don't wear them out in town too often, but whenever I'm going out and doing something weird or crazy, I always have a fanny pack with some medical kit with me. And I can drop this hemostatic gauze into that pouch and just feed directly from there. So that's kind of a nice thing to do. And we're just going to keep packing and poking it in as tight as we can get it. We want to fill this entire cavity so that there's pressure going to any bleeding arteries, blood vessels, everything. We're just going to continue to pack it in there until we can't get any more in. Okay, I'm having a hard time getting more in. So I'm going to take the rest of this, place it on top over the hole, and then I'm going to hold direct pressure for at least 3 minutes. And there you have it. The wound is packed. And now all we need to do is apply a pressure dressing over this. This is the North American Rescue ETD, the Israeli bandage. The OLAES bandage is a really good one. These are all really good direct pressure or pressure dressings. So you want to wrap that around so that this gauze stays in place and continues to put pressure on that bleeding artery. Now, some of you might notice this blue stripe down the side of this ChitoGauze. Quick Clot Combat Gauze has that blue stripe running right down the center. And all this is this shows up on an x-ray so that if the casualty goes in, they do an x-ray to see what's going on inside. And then this will show up on the x-ray, and they won't forget to remove this gauze, because that happens more frequently than doctors like to admit. Gauze and other instruments get left inside of the casualties after surgery all the time. So there's a risk for it. So we want to make sure that this gets taken out and doesn't get left in on accident. So what are some of the other properties of this hemostatic agent? This is ChitoGauze. It also has antimicrobial benefits, which is pretty cool. No other hemostatic agent that I'm aware of yet has that hemostatic or has the hemostatic agents and the antimicrobial. The chitosan that they use for the blood clotting agent is very, very good stuff. They get it from the exoskeleton of shrimp and crabs and lobsters, but they can also get it from shiitake mushrooms. And the chitosan that comes from shiitake mushrooms actually has an increased benefit for antimicrobials. And the reason why that's important is because anytime that you get a wound, any damage to the skin, Skin is your first layer of defense against infection. So there's a good chance that you're going to get debris and other things into the wound that will cause an infection. And the chitosan that's in this, the hemostatic agent, will help to prevent infection. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. Thanks for hanging out and looking at how to pack wounds with ChitoGauze. Again, this is a very solid piece of kit. I highly recommend that you pick yourself up some and keep it in your medical kit so that when you have a really bad day and you have a wound that you cannot treat with a tourniquet, this is going to be essential. You need to be able to treat more wounds. Tourniquets are great. They don't do everything. We need to be able to take care of multiple injuries. Tourniquets, have them on you. They're important, but it's not going to fix everything, right? Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. That is a free way to support my channel. So I appreciate every single one of you that come in here and comment and like the videos and share them around. That's a huge deal for me. It helps me to get the word out, helps the channel to grow. If you want to spend some money, you want to support me and also get yourself a good medical kit, head over to the mountainmanmedical.com website and pick yourself up a Yellowstone or a Wind River trauma kit and be ready for whatever the mountain throws at you. I'll catch you guys in the next one.